Okay, guys, welcome to episode number 3 of the Hindsight podcast. Today we have two very interesting guests with us. We have Prateek Mittal and Mirik Gogri. The interesting thematic thing about them is that both of them, after graduating from IIT and working for a while, ended up getting into their family business. So that's our theme for today. And Harsh, you know these guys better, so I'll let you tee up the intro.
So, it's a very interesting thing. I myself come from a family business, and I think my mom keeps saying that इसको IIT भेज के बहुत बड़ी गलती की क्योंकि ये फिर कभी आया ही नहीं वापस. It was very interesting when we were then thinking about this podcast and saying कि who should we get as guests. I think this particular theme sort of stuck back with me because we don't really come across too many people who've come to IIT from a family business and immediately gone back to the family business itself. Right? I mean, I am a startup founder. मेरा business है, but family business बहुत ही अलग है. Right? So it was a very interesting topic that we thought will be there because I don't think many of us know such people who've come. So welcome to Prateek and Mirik. Prateek is my batch. Mirik is a few batches junior to me. Know both of them decently, and guys, thank you so much for being a part of it. As for all of us, IIT Bombay was the beginning of our journeys, of our careers in life, and let's start off there. So, what is the one thing or the most memorable thing that you guys have from IIT Bombay?
Right. So, I mean, IIT में बहुत सारे aspects थे. Wing होता है. For me, there was tech fest, there was sports. So one, fondest memory probably is an interesting incident in the beginning of the year. So after the JEE result, मेरे कुछ और इंजीनियरिंग सीनियर्स से बात हो रही थी कि हाउ इज द स्पोर्ट्स सीन यूजुअली इन द कॉलेजेस. तो मुझे किसी ने बड़ी ही शॉकिंग बात बताई और ये बताया गया कि सीनियर्स यूजुअली टीम में जूनियर्स को नहीं लेते हैं कि आपके पास तो टीम में आने के और आगे भी साल हैं, हमें अभी टीम में आ जाने दो टाइप्स एंड ऑल दैट स्टफ कि हमारे रिज्यूमे में आ जाएगा. राइट. सो व्हेन आई केम टू इंस्टी एंड वहाँ पे एनएसओ के ट्रायल्स हो रहे थे फर्स्ट कुछ दिनों में. सो विजय, वन ऑफ आवर बैडी सीनियर्स, ही वाज वाचिंग अस. And that same night, उसी दिन, and Vijay comes to my room at night and knocks and says कि बाहर lounge में आ जाओ and team के captain wants to meet you. तो I was मेरे को तो वही नोशन था, तो मैं डरा हुआ पहुंचा कि अब मुझे बोला जाएगा कि कल से कोर्ट पे नहीं दिखने चाहिए. तो बट फॉर्चुनेटली उन्होंने मेरे से मेरा बैकग्राउंड समझा बैडमिंटन का एंड ही वाज लाइक कि टीम की प्रैक्टिस टाइम 6 से 8 PM है, सो सी यू देयर टुमारो. And that moment was very goose bumpy for me because that opened up a lot of opportunities for me. I met such cool people sports के. Interestingly, हमने campus में ragging नहीं होती है usually, right? So Inter-IIT में you get a chance to experience that also because train में जब आप जाते हो तो वहाँ पे there's entire freedom and every sort of thing happens. So the sports के round I have really fond memories from the institute.
And you got what, 4 golds for IIT Bombay or all 4 years, right?
Yeah, all 4 years.
Thank you for your service.
I think when I was the sports secretary in the year that Mittal, he was the GS Sports, and I had the privilege of watching some of his matches on the losing side, I think, when he would be facing Hostel 4. So, but I think as a sports secretary, that journey was quite memorable. As in when we won, and that was Hostel 4 का 7th consecutive gold था, and I was the sports secretary, and it was, I think, Hostel 13 के सामने. And I remember the moment when I and a couple of other sports secretaries were on the footer field, and when the results came in and we realized, okay, mathematically now we have won. And it was quite a tight sort of year. So that was one of the most बहुत ही अच्छी memory थी. And I think one of the other interesting experience, because I had a Mudai background, I was a core group member in 2010. So at our time, we had bought sumo wrestling, and it was, I think, the first time ever that sumo wrestling had come to India. And I and with my Horizons colleagues, we had bought them. And I think the atmosphere in OAT, and even after the pro night was complete and it was completely jam-packed, and we have 2 sumos wrestling, and I think it was quite an electric atmosphere. And I remember Edul Patel I think again 2 years senior.
our
He
batch,
sort of
our
had a
batch,
mock
yeah.
wrestling match with the sumos, and मतलब बहुत ही मजे आ गए थे, and I think that was one of the key highlights, couple of points, and
I would love
I
to
think
see that video.
I think कहीं पे है, I think Sports Center had covered it. So in prime time, 8:30 p.m. on ESPN, there was a 2-minute slot. So मैं हमेशा बोलता था कि इससे ज़्यादा media coverage कभी नहीं मिलेगा मुडाई को. So I'll
Ashwin,
maybe figure out where the video is. Let's see.
ये निकालते हैं. If we find the video, we will edit it into the podcast.
हाँ नहीं होगा
With copyrights.
Ashwin,
This
have
is
you
super cool,
come
yeah.
across? Ashwin, have you come across any guest who has talked about ACADS as being the most memorable thing in it?
No, yeah, nobody.
It's a pain.
Wait, क्या बोलेंगे? I think at some point we'll get some of these 9.9 pointer types, and then that person will talk about the one course जिसमें उसकी grade चुकी थी.
If Yashodhan Kanoria comes and doesn't talk about ACADS as the most memorable thing of getting a 10-point across all 4 years, then I think IIT should die in shame. But anyways, thanks guys for sharing this.
No, yeah, thanks a lot for sharing this. And so then jumping into the meat of what we really want to hear from you about, right? So what is something that the last 5 years have taught you that you wouldn't have believed back then?
I'll start. So over the last 10 years, our business has probably been through a lot of phases, and at all times हमें लोग कुछ ना कुछ चीज को लेके कॉम्प्लीमेंट करते हैं कि आपने 2 साल पहले फोकस कंप्लीशंस पे किया, प्रोजेक्ट्स लॉन्च ना करके, तो वो बहुत अच्छा आपका थॉट था. या 2 years back you launched affordable housing projects, that was a great move. And or in the pandemic times we were told that building a channel partner friendly company from the beginning, real estate mein channel partner is a big thing. So that was very visionary of you. So we sometimes think sit and think ki, have we been really that planned and methodical in our approach? And but of course the answer is no, because many plans that we made have not been so successful, which but in a business or in life in general हम plans तो बहुत बनाते ही हैं. And even in IIT we made plans, we made plans for our MBA, we made plans for our jobs, but वो नहीं work out कर रहे हैं. So probably last 5 years have particularly taught me that patience is the key in such a scenario, because outside world will keep changing. For example, in real estate, demonetization happened, GST came into picture, RERA was there, now the pandemic of course hit everybody. So there is really nothing that you can do outside your circle of influence, and that is where you need to focus on.
I think for me, and something I can also relate to, earlier I was sort of in a startup and then came into the family business in a way. So in a startup, when you are the co-founder, you sort of have a lot of authority and a lot of control with you. When you are in a family business, and obviously this is a pretty large family business, it's a public listed company at the end of the day. So there is a combination of authority, but because there are family members involved, there is some restraint also. Like you have to let go in some space, you have to give people space also. So it's a very interesting balance, and वो perspective काफी, I would say it was somewhere challenging also, because you are not used to those kind of things. Simultaneously, you have to lead a bigger organization, which is earlier in a startup is like maybe a 10-member team, and यहाँ पे like right now 400 people you are working with. And the challenge sometimes comes when in a meeting, that because I can talk to my brother or my father or my cousin in a blunt way, you have to also sensitize everyone कि हम लोग तो ये बात कर सकते हैं, मतलब ज़्यादा टेंशन मत लो, because I can be very rough, and that's the good part also in a way, right? I can really speak my mind, they can speak my mind, and we can have that conversation. But how do you sensitize the people? So वो एक, your every word matters in a different way when you are in this organization, because you are sort of part of the promoter family. I think that was a thing that I would not have expected early. And I think I also relate to the fact that Mittal mentioned we are into manufacturing or setting up big projects. So the time scale की जो बात होती है, like patience is so important. One of the current products that just got commissioned in our plants, the first idea was 6 years ago. मतलब when I talk to the friends, in the tech space वो 6 महीने में products आते हैं, and this is like a bigger time scale. So I think वो patience is very very crucial. And sometimes when you look back, you feel कि क्या हुआ है 4 साल में, because the steps are not that public, और public इतने दिखते नहीं है. But yeah, when you look at it, those are very crucial steps at the right moment, and then only you get maybe a real estate project or a chemical plant on the ground. So
But
I think those were the couple of perspectives.
Mirik, in your case, was Renil's experience some way easier for you to sort of look at, because your elder brother also IIT Bombay, H4, Horizon CG in MI also. I think all of that was just so much more similar, and he would have gone into the business a few years before you. Did that help in any way? Did that sensitize you?
He was a hostel for Seki also. He was hostel for sports Seki also.
Sports Seki also. There you go.
But no, I think the lucky part for us is now our family business has a half generation age gap. So it's not like a full generation. My uncle, because we have a joint family, so my uncle and my dad have 13 years. Dad and then dad and my cousin have 13. My cousin and Renil has 13, and so on. So somewhere it's the transition, because the generational gap discussions are slightly more, in a way, easier because it's a half generation age gap. Obviously, Renil being there helped me because sort of he had gone through some of the things earlier. So yeah, it definitely sort of helps in that way.
And Mittal, you spoke about these life-changing events, right? Not just for the real estate industry, for the whole country, but of course more so for the real estate industry because of what demonetization, RERA, GST, pandemic also. I mean, as in the startup world, हम तो pivot कर लेते हैं, but in your case, how would you deal with these things?
So you're very right. I mean, as Mirik also mentioned, the time scales are very different, and feedback cycle भी उतना ही slow है और reaction time भी उतना ही slow हो जाता है, because it takes a lot of stuff to change any working style. So demonetization, GST, RERA, these things have been hard. There's absolutely no doubt about it, and it takes months to recover from it, or there is certainly no way that you can plan for it. But once those things happened, it took us at least 2 quarters to streamline our processes, our systems based on those changes. So it is definitely a hard thing, and probably this is interestingly, these are also some of those things jinki वजह से over the last few years your belief over on something like a superpower or an almighty, इस तरह के आपके faith और ज़्यादा strengthen होते हैं. And I mean, although I feel fortunate that कि मेरा इस direction में belief system बड़ा है, but so these are the kind of impacts that these things have on you.
And I think maybe I can relate to one important point, that the external factors, like in the chemical industry, the regulations are like the environmental regulations, and constantly engaging with the government, what are the norms, and like external changes के impact. And as you rightly mentioned, pivoting is not possible. So how do you navigate the situations in those cases? That becomes a constant I think challenge. So हमारे case में भी our environment team as a company has gone quite big, as in for us, because for a chemical industry, environment is quite an important aspect. So, and the awareness or the strain on environment, or like the focus on government of environment, is increasing, and वो बढ़ते ही जाएगा. So that is something that we need to, and we are constantly working on.
And both of you spoke a little bit about the joining the family and having the fact that the family is different maybe from your the other startups / other businesses, where everyone is a colleague and there is a different kind of relationship you can have there. Can you talk a little bit more about that? So when some disruptive changes happen, जैसे कि आप दोनों के cases में regulation or demonetization was a big change, what is the conversation in the family like? And is it do you wish it were family, or do you sometimes wish it were not family?
So in my case, I mean, I definitely feel family, being a family helps. I mean, because disruptive things, of course, they present an opportunity as well. But at times you need people to support you morally and emotionally, and आप same घर में रह रहे हो, discussion सुबह शाम वही है, you can share your mind openly, आपको you get that freedom to be open and frank, and that moral support is a big plus when we talk about such disruptive events.
And I think जब disruption हो रहा है तो family definitely helps, because when things are against the company in a way, like कुछ issue हो गया, हमारे case में they had a contract cancellation a couple of years ago, then everyone sort of banded together and it was like we have to get through this. But when things are smoother, that is where I think things are more challenging, because then people have a lot of their own ideas also now. So at that time, how do you navigate the ship? So when I would argue when things are tough, it is better. When things are smoother, I think internal family navigation also takes some effort in a way. So that is where I think it's worth it. But yeah.
Prateek, you are grinning at that point. I feel like there's a story there. If you're comfortable telling us that story,
but definitely relatable. When things are smooth, I mean, everybody has their own growth ideas, which may not be very aligned, and usko align karne mein definitely takes some effort.
Got it. So that's a perfect segue into the other thing that we wanted to discuss with you, which is, so you've talked a little bit about things that were difficult, things that are potentially easy because it's a family. What is something that was much more difficult than you'd imagine?
Mirik, you want to take the lead on that?
Oh, sure. So I think with the family business, when you join, it's sort of your last job, right? As in, you are not going to have a job again in a way. So वो थोड़ा एक perspective होता है कि like there is no last resort in that particular work that you are doing. मतलब even if times are tough, you cannot sort of just let it go and do something else. मतलब technically you can, but it is much harder than when you are, say, with a bad boss or a bad situation. So I think that is a very interesting problem. So at times of frustration, how do you get frustration out has to be maybe different in these cases as compared to maybe some other ways. And secondly, I think one important aspect is you are always on vacation, but you are never on vacation basically. So that is one, because at any point whenever I am on vacation, I can have work and I can sort of take a vacation anytime I want, because we are our own bosses in this. So जो रात को जो बातें Mittal was also mentioning कि it sometimes also goes long. So जो थोड़ा work-life balance starts becoming a challenge sometimes when you are sitting at home and even at like till 2 a.m. in the night, we are just my father and my brother are just discussing things. It's not the most ideal situation in the world, but yeah, as in there is passion there, right, at the end of the day. वो थोड़ा in the end it's like startup में कैसे भी burning the midnight oil, तो ऐसे family business में भी शायद similar ही होता है in a way. So
do you guys talk about that though? I'm curious. Do you say कि, for example, कि रात को dinner के बाद no work talk? Like is that even a thing?
No discussion. I don't think that is a discussion. At least in our family, that never happens. कि no work को कोई define नहीं करता है. Work की definition
dinner पे भी होगा, breakfast पे भी होगा, सब पे होगा. कोई rules नहीं है.
मतलब like all our other family members do tell कि भाई ठीक है अभी time हो गया, now you have
non-working family members bring this up.
2 days का conference करके आए हो, अभी छोड़ो, अभी मतलब हो गया discussion. But हाँ मतलब it is a tough thing. मतलब वो mentally you are
Gogri mentioned you can always take a vacation, but although vacation पे जाके वो वहाँ पे जाके thought camp ही होना है, discussion work को लेके ही होनी है, but you can always step out and take 2-3 days off in the sense कि to relax. And also as Mirik was mentioning कि it is sort of your last job and it is just not possible to switch out. For me, probably the difficult part was to switch into the family business. जिस mode में हम चल रहे होते हैं during college, whatever your peers are discussing, the job prospects, the kind of tech industry that was coming up when we were passing out of college. To switch into a family business was very difficult at that time, and I did not imagine that to happen because day one se clear tha ki I have to come back to business, but I did not imagine that it will become so difficult because for example, when I joined 2011, I sort of tried to launch a perfectly crafted, differential commission model for the brokers, and which made so much mathematical sense for me. But my brother outrightly rejected it for being too complex for them. So simple things like these don't seem to work, and that also brings a certain level of frustration in the beginning. So it takes time to get into the groove to be able to run the family business.
Mittal, you mentioned that from day one, it was clear to you, okay, वापस आना है. This is like before getting into IIT also, you were clear कि इधर भी जाओ, वापस आना है.
So at that time, we didn't have a real estate business. We started it when I was mid IIT. So that made it even more, plausible कि मैं घर पे ही आऊँ, because it was almost like a family startup, not a legacy business. We started in 2008. So before that, father was doing some other business. Had it been that business, so probably I would have come back and started a new arm. But ये clear था that I will be coming back and I will be joining the business.
Mirik,
I think
in
for
your case,
me it was slightly different because we had a legacy business, not legacy, but it was started in my uncle 1975 chemical business. My cousins were already in it. Renil sort of was joining when I was getting into IIT. But तो भी मेरे माइंड में स्टार्टिंग में नहीं था. So when I did my startup, ऐसा नहीं था कि वापस ही आना है. I think in the startup also I realized the scale, because I was doing a boutique sort of a startup of innovation, product innovation. It was not like a very big scale वाला startup. And वो एक psychological shift हुआ कि when family business में एक scale मिलता है, मतलब because the large company that we were in, like I think at that time only we were 4,000-5,000 crore turnover level पे. So I think appreciation of scale really came when I entered the family business, and that psychological shift also is required because you are used to a different mindset when you're talking to friends. When I was there, like half my batchmates were in housing, other half were in tiny owl. So that was our batch, right, in those couple of batches. And then
so how different was it for both of you? Because I think all our peers, so which is similar to like Ashwin and me, are doing very different things where the time scales are 6-month time scales or 1 year time scales, right? And we discussed this in a previous episode also, where how every year you have these appraisal cycles and whatnot. So time scales are just so warped. How did you guys deal with what's happening around you with your batchmates or with your 1 year junior, 1 year senior people?
It definitely took a lot of time to adjust. मतलब जब आसपास की आप news देखते हो, you are right. People, building startups, getting fundings, growing into $1 million, billion-dollar businesses, and as Mirik mentioned, the decisions that you are taking in your business are, going to produce results probably 5 years down the line, or so वो play काफी hard था. At least in the first couple of years, it was very, very hard for me to adjust to.
Yeah, I think very, very similar experience. I think, but it sort of, you get to it, right? I think you understand the kind of business you are in, and once you sort of appreciate the business that you are in, I think you get more satisfaction when things are happening, as in, because, and somewhere I feel वो tangibility भी दिखता है, मतलब because you have actually built something, or your business is actually building infrastructure or slightly longer term projects. So somewhere वो app और वो एक actual physical thing में वो tangibility का जो feel आती है, which I can appreciate now. Again, I have no idea what other people think, but at least I definitely
that steadiness is what you hold on to. That steadiness is what you pivot around. कि हाँ, this is what you are playing for.
So I think both of you all mentioned that कभी ना कभी तो आना था वापस फैमिली बिजनेस में. प्रतीक मित्तल को तो फर्स्ट डे ही पता था कि अंदर घुसते ही यार इलेक्ट है, फर्क नहीं पड़ता, मेरे को तो जाना है वापस चंडीगढ़. Like I think both of you also know Karan Hirani, again another friend. इसका तो ऐसा interesting case है. Sub 200 JE rank, and his form for actually getting in was first preference is IIT Bombay Chemical BTech, second preference IIT Bombay Chemical Dual, third preference IIT Bombay MSc Chem, fourth preference IIT Kanpur Chemical BTech, fifth preference IIT Kanpur Chemical Dual. Like इतना clarity था उसको कि बस chemical में घुसना है क्योंकि family business में वापस जाना है वो. His brother also had the exact same thing. Krish also, yeah. But I think it's just interesting to see कि how पता था कि आना है, but फिर भी still after coming back also it was so difficult to then adjust and sort of get yourself set on.
Right.
Oh, this is fascinating, right? And so on that topic of difficulties and all these changes, right? We would be remiss if we didn't talk about the pandemic. So pandemic has been tough for everyone for different reasons. So we are not going to talk about the tough, heavy stuff. But I'm curious, was there something positive that you came away with? Any silver lining to the last couple of years in you guys' lives and businesses?
For me, I mean, definitely there was one big positive that happened, and I had been thinking about it for years, but the normal routine work life probably did not allow me the mental bandwidth to focus on it. And I have had a sports background, but I had lived a very unhealthy lifestyle after college, and I had gained weight up to 95, 97 kgs. So it was it was very important for me to set that right, and I lost 25 kgs post the pandemic gave me that opportunity to set a routine, जो कि आप usual work life में it becomes very difficult to adopt. Once I was able to build that routine, so even after the lockdown, I could carry on with it, and that was probably a big change that happened. And that obviously health is the basis for everything that you do.
And IIT, when you were a badminton champ, you would have been what, in the 60s, 70s in your weight tops?
Yeah, I'm back to what I was in IIT.
I like if Mittal had not mentioned this, I would have not believed him, because 10 years ago when I saw him, he was exactly like this. So if he's telling me that he's gone from 70 to 97 and back to 70, मेरे को तो पता नहीं ये Mittal कौन है फिर.
We should make like a YouTube short or a TikTok to promote this this episode where Mittal starts by saying मैं बहुत मोटा था. Mirik, what about you? Is there any silver lining?
Two things. One very similar, again, not that big a reduction for me. I think I was also 81, 82 in a ways, but then sort of focus on health. I think it's more than the focus. You get the space to have a schedule which you can really work on, right? Like you gym training and diet, because now you know that you are not going out of India or to any other place for the next 1 year, right? In a way, so उससे काफी फर्क पड़ा. But I think बहुत interesting is that gave me a time to learn a lot. I think literally I've been crazy in online courses for the past 24 months. I think I would have done more than 20, 25. And
what kind of stuff?
So largely on climate. So I have really gone inside climate, the full black box. I can literally speak on hours. So हमारा 10 साल का reunion हुआ था अभी in Goa, our batch. So I literally gave a talk on climate change, and what actually happened in that is sort of a silver lining. हमारा the family fund है, like our family office where we invest, उसको पूरा channelize कर दिया हमने to now just work with companies around the world on climate change or people fighting against climate change or adapting to it. And it is such a complicated problem, then nothing else. But the experience of sort of working in a large scale manufacturing company has really helped there when I am talking to people, because again, these are the kind of problems which require actual on ground physical solutions. So pandemic ने वो थोड़ा headspace दे दिया where suddenly the importance of world के लिए important problems पता चले, rather than खुद के business के important problems तो पता है कि चलो इतना grow करना है ये है, but what is the biggest problem in the world right now? I think that appreciation I could get in the pandemic, and luckily itna time था कि I could really deep dive. So that was a very what you call non-thought of, but very good silver lining at the end of the
day. This is great, guys. So thanks a lot. It was wonderful having both of you here. And for our other viewers, we have up on the screen our email address. So feel free to write back. We will try our best to sign up our two guests to answer any questions or any comments that you may send our way. This was an amazing conversation. Thank you both for making the time.
Thank you
so much.
Thank you, guys.